I can, yes, Sean. Yes, I can hear you.
Great, good. Well, good morning, everybody. Again, Sean Woodess here at the VERICO head office, and joined by our friends Rupert and Mike at Focal Point Coaching. Again, we appreciate you all coming on the call today. I know we're all getting ready for the holiday season here. I'm just looking around our boardroom where we're sitting right now with all kinds of boxes and things stacked up on our desks. I'm sure many the same for yourselves. Well, this is going to be the last coaching session for 2012, but I do want to say we have a full agenda of continuous ongoing coaching sessions with the team for the VERICO Professional Success Series all throughout 2013. First one starting on Thursday, January 10th, and then every 2 weeks from there. I appreciate you all. I know it's a busy time of year. We all always think it's going to get quiet and we're going to have so much time to do some work and do some planning, which we always have to book some time aside, as both Rupert and Mike remind us diligently about to do. But it always seems to be quite busy at this time of year anyways, regardless, whether it's personal or business or a combination of both. But we are excited. I was mentioning to both Rupert and Mike prior to everyone joining us on the call. I read the title of the screen here, The Way to Wealth, a Simple Formula for Success. I don't know about you, but I like the sounds of that. So why don't we go right over to Rupert himself and say, Rupert, make us wealthy. What's the secret? Over to you.
Thanks very much, Sean. Yes, it's always good to get people excited with a good headline like that. And really, this is a super simple formula which will help everybody on the line, everybody who listens to this on the recording, become more successful. Your 2013 will be better than your 2012 once you really grasp this. And I get really excited about it in my business because sometimes business can feel, if you go back a few weeks when I was starting this series, it was saying about how similar your business is to mine as a business coach. And, sometimes it can feel like there's so many different things that you need to be doing and so many things you need to be focusing on. And what this does, this Way to Wealth formula, is really boils it down into simple levers that you can pull, and you'll just see the simplicity. I'm not the brightest guy in the room, and I like simple, so we'll move on from here. Okay, next page. That's me. The agenda is we're going to review the last sessions because we deliberately have selected these sessions so that they build upon one another. So I just want to make sure that whether you've been on the previous sessions or not, that you understand the kind of context that we have. I'll then go through the equation that will change your world if you're not aware of it already, and most of you won't be. And then we'll take questions at the end. You can leave questions in the chat box, or you can we'll unmute the lines later on if you want to actually ask a question. So previously, just to remind you, we've talked about this, the iceberg concept, the law of belief, and that is that whatever you believe drives what you think about a certain situation, how you respond in terms of the actions that you take, and that is what essentially generates your results. So again, as I said before, we'll be testing some of your beliefs about what you think is possible in your business and what feels feasible to you. Just suspend a little bit of disbelief if you're feeling the pressure of that arising. If this was, like I mentioned last time, if this was easy and you believed everything that I said, you'd probably be taking the actions already. So this is about shaking the tree a little bit and testing some of your beliefs. And that discomfort that you get is a good thing as we're going through this. So that's the law of belief that we covered previously. We also talked about victor-victim. For those of you who were on the line, you'll remember. Those of you who weren't, essentially where it applies in this scenario is the P for proves within the victor is about being proactive. And what we're going to be talking about today is all about hitting the P, all about hitting the proactivity, and a little bit about the vision of building a bigger business in 2013 than you had in 2012. And it certainly doesn't talk about, or it helps us focus away from the S in the victim, which is the scarcity mentality, that there's not enough maybe clients around, etc. So think like a victor, don't think like a victim. If that doesn't mean much to you, then go back a couple of weeks and attend the recorded webinar that we did about a month ago on victor victim. And this is the 3 eyes of the business owner, 3 eyes of the entrepreneur. Now we are going to be throwing up, I should say, questions that are right bang in that entrepreneur mode. How can I? What happens if? Where would I find? All these kind of questions. So we talked about getting that balance right. Remember, as we went through, we said you might pay a technician $20 an hour, you might pay a manager $30 an hour, but you'll pay an entrepreneur a lot of money to answer those questions for you. And we talked about the amount of time that you're spending in entrepreneur mode. Well, if any of you have been wondering what you might be filling your time with when you're spending it in entrepreneur mode, this is going to be the session that's going to just give you a bucket overflowing full of questions that are great entrepreneur questions for you to be asking now, over Christmas, into the new year, and pretty much for the rest of your time in this business. So this is really all entrepreneurial thinking. So what is this great equation that I'm telling you is going to make a massive change to your business? Well, it's a simple breakdown, and it applies to any business. It's digestible, it's realistic, and I'm going to make it really interactive because it isn't just an intellectual sort of exercise. This is really interactive. I'm expecting you all. It's going to be much more impactful if you're all there with a pad and a paper, a pad of paper and a pen, colored pens ideally. We talked about that. That you put in your figures into this equation as we're going through it. So, this isn't to sort of sit back and do your emails or, sort of have anything else open on the screen. This is an hour of really focusing on this because you'll get the most out of it that way. And I'm really expecting that this is going to be eye-opening for many of you as just to how many levers there are to pull and how simple it would be to have a massive increase in your business in 2013. Now, I mentioned the formula, I mentioned the equation. Now, you all deal in figures all day, so I'm expecting that more than most of the clients that we introduce this to, you're not going to be fazed by the numbers, but don't worry, a math major is not required. It's pretty much grade 5 math. It's just a simple equation. So if that's fazed you, don't worry about it. Get your pads, get your papers, let's do it. And what I want you to do is draw out on a piece of paper a bunch of lines. I mean, you need 18 lines, or you can split it into 3 pages of fewer, but we need 3 columns. I want one to be headed Way to Wealth, or W2W, one headed Now, and one headed Future. As I say, you need about 18 lines going down. And really the Way to Wealth is 3 equations combined to form one major equation. So we have a customer equation, A, we have a sales equation, B, and the cost equation, C. And when you times A by B and take away C, that's what you end up with your net profit. I think, can we all handle that? I think hopefully we can. That's about as complex as it gets. So let's deal with the customer equation first. This says, you guys could call it the client equation or whatever, but really this says the number of customers you get is a factor of 2 issues. The number of leads that you're attracting and the percentage of those leads that you can convert to clients. I told you this wasn't very complex. It's just, that's it. How many people can you attract and how many of those can you convince, persuade, sell, end up turning into clients. So what was that this year for you guys? Now, you've got 3 levers that you can pull when you're trying to trying to influence the customer equation. You can influence the volume of people that you get, and how you define a lead is kind of interesting. I'm sure there's people out there saying, let's discuss how you define a lead. Really, that's up to you, because it's a factor of the second point here, the quality and qualification. If you have a physical office at street level, so to speak, and a lead is somebody who comes into the office, then great. If you deal a lot on the phone and a lead is somebody who rings you and says, hey, I heard you're the best mortgage broker in town, you know, can you talk to me about my mortgage? You might decide that they're not really a lead until you've qualified them that they are lendable. It's totally up to you how you define that lead, but I would say it's anybody, or for my purposes within my business, it's anybody who expresses an interest in dealing with me. Now, if they turn out to be underqualified, then that's kind of my problem in terms of, am I attracting the wrong people? And that comes the same with you. If you're getting a lot of people who aren't qualified to ever get a mortgage under any circumstances, then you're wasting a lot of time, and it suggests a different approach that you might take to attracting people. Why, you know, the great entrepreneurial question there would be, why am I attracting so many people who have no hope of getting a mortgage versus attracting people who want big mortgages and lots of them? And then you've obviously got your ability to convert those people. Once you've established that they're qualified people, how do you convert them into clients, and why is the leakage? Why is it not 100% of people who are, you know, are mortgageable who aren't dealing with you? And if it is 100%, fantastic. Let's just increase the volume. So there's 3 levers there that you can pull, and that's the exciting thing about this equation is by breaking it down, it's very easy to see right away what you might do differently in 2013. So let's take an example. Let's say you're a mortgage broker and you get about 2 leads a week, 2 people expressing decent interest in you as being their mortgage broker. Now, some people might say, wow, that's low. Some people might say, well, I wish I was seeing two new people a week. Whatever it is for you, I want you to write it down under the now column under leads. I'm going to use the example of 100. And what's your conversion rate? Now, is it 1 in 4? That's what this is our avatar chap, lady here. She converts about 1 in 4 of these leads. For whatever reason, it might be that the sales technique could use improving, or it could be that the leads aren't all brilliantly qualified. Whatever it is, she's converting 1 in 4. So she knows how many clients she's got, 25. Now, you may know how many clients probably more likely, you guys are going to know how many clients you got in 2012. So you can start with that. Oops, sorry, I'm going to come back here. Sorry. And you may have a rough idea of how many leads you had, and then you can work out what your conversion rate is from that. It doesn't really matter to me whether you start knowing how many leads and your exact conversion rate, and then you'll work out how many clients, or start with the clients and work out how many leads you got, because you know you roughly convert about, you seem to be converting about 1 in 3. That's your gut feel. But I want to pause just now and just do a quick poll of the people on the line, because I think it's important that we, let me just go down here, that we check that we're on the same page. So I'd like you to estimate how many leads did you personally get in 2012. If there's a bunch of you in the office, then have a quick poll between you guys as to how many people you attracted on average as the poll. I've seen some votes coming in here. Great. Okay, I'm seeing there's quite a few people are getting sort of under 1 a week here. That's interesting. Okay. Some people are more successful. That's great. Okay, and we can discuss that. We can use this information. So if you haven't voted yet, last chance to vote. Okay. Right, so I'll just share that with you guys. So a lot of people are getting under 50 leads a year. Then more are getting up to 100, and a few of us are getting doing well and getting over 150. Let's go back to the presentation. Right, so that 100 might feel high for some of you. Obviously, it's going to feel high for some of you. But whatever it is there, let's just be with it and write it down. And your conversion rate, hopefully, then, if you're under 50, there'll be highly qualified leads, and you'll be converting a higher rate than 25. So we'd like to know by now how many clients you landed in 2012. And let's move on. Now we've got the sales equation. This is how much revenue you're making. So this is a factor of the average commission that you're making per mortgage that you sell, and the number of repeat commissions that you get. And this is specifically in the calendar year. So if you're selling, closing a deal with one client today and another client in January, that's one client this year and it's one client next year. But if they bought one investment property in March and another one in August, then that would be two, obviously, in this year. So there's two levers again here on the sales equation. So it's a factor of your average commission, and it's a factor of the number of loans per client per year. So again, this avatar person, now again, some of you may be saying, I wish my average commission was $3,000. We don't all live in Vancouver, and I understand that. But depending on whether you're in the first-time home buyers market or in a refinancing kind of role, I picked $3,000. It didn't seem to me from the figures that I talked to brokers about that was totally unrealistic. But I've also been very conservative here on the number of loans per client. This particular mortgage broker only sells 2 mortgages to one client in every 25. So they, out of those 25 clients, only one of them bought 2 mortgages from them this year. And again, depending on which demographic you're going after, depending on which of the various target markets that you're focusing on, that may be high, that may be low. Mike did a survey 2 weeks ago, and 46% of the people on the call were saying, you know what, we think the first-time buyers are our target market. In that case, you know what, you may not be selling two mortgages to any clients this year because you only sold to first-time buyers, and I'm guessing not many of those buy two houses in their first year. So, but I do also know of mortgage brokers who focus a lot on investors, and they may be selling 6 or 7 mortgages to one client in this year. So what's your average number of loans per client? And that, when you go through it all, is going to indicate or you can calculate your total revenue. But let's go back to the sales equation just before we move on. You have 2 levers here again. You've got the deal size that you go after, and the people that who are you attracting, and why are they only wanting $98,000 mortgages? If you've got to do a lot of those to make the kind of commissions, how can you start attracting people who want to borrow more money? And also the client type. Are you just going after purely residential mortgages, or are you finding the ability to attract people who want numerous investment mortgages or even business mortgages, which would tend to be slightly higher? So you've got 2 areas that you could focus on in 2013, is the deal size, and the entrepreneurial question there is like, how do I find people who want to borrow more money than my current target market? And the client type, how do I find more investors? How do I find more more people who want more activity? So you've got the clients, you've got the number of commissions, and you've got the number of loans, and that's going to give you a total revenue, in this case, of $78,000 a year for this particular mortgage broker. But that's the income. We're now going to focus on 2 types of costs that we have within any business. The cost of goods sold is how we would describe it, let's say, in retail. But for you, it's like the cost per the cost per mortgage sold or per mortgage closed. And these are the variable costs per deal. So if you're in the habit of giving a $100 gift basket as a welcome home present to first-time buyers, that becomes a variable cost per deal for you guys. I have some friends of mine who give away books, educational books on the real estate market. It costs them about 30 or 40 bucks per lead. Now, in this case, let's say they had the conversion ratio of this avatar here. That would be $120 per deal, because on average, they're giving away $30. They have to do that 4 times before they close a deal, so their variable cost per deal would be $120. You need to understand, and if they're in the habit of taking people out for lunch or dinner, etc., what's that typically per deal closed? Because they're totally variable. If you've got nobody coming through the door, you wouldn't be sending out any books, you wouldn't be sending out any gift baskets, you wouldn't be taking people out for lunch. So those are the variable costs. It's really important that you know those and manage those and understand kind of how much they're eating into your margins. And I'm not saying don't do them, I'm saying just be aware of them. So you've then also got the operating costs. So what are the costs that you'll spend whether you do 0 or 100 deals? Now, if you're a work from home office kind of person, your fixed costs are going to be substantially lower than somebody who's gone out and committed to renting an office. But what are those fixed costs? It doesn't matter whether you have a great year or a bad year, you're going to be in for X amount of dollars anyway. And I guess I should have included variable costs per deal in there. So for those of you who are agents working under a brokerage, the variable cost per deal for you there is the amount that you share with the broker. And what we want to come out of at the end of this is an understanding of how we leverage or how we manage those two, the variable costs and the fixed costs of our business in any given year. So in this case, I've used the same percentage for this person, said that typically they're spending 23% of any commission is going on variable costs, and 23%, and they're spending about $18,000 a year on fixed costs, which happens to be 23% of their income. And that just makes the math easy. For you, the fixed costs might be massively higher than variable costs, or it might be the other way around if you're a stay-at-home, a work-from-home individual. So let's have an estimate for you guys, if you don't have the figures handy. What do you think your variable costs were, and what were your fixed costs? And what I really need you to do now as well is just do a quick, what's the percentage? So 18 over 78 is 23%. And I'd say I've cheated there because I've done the math. I've called them both the same, but for you there'll be different costs. So what's your current variable costs, and what are your current fixed costs? I'll give you a couple of minutes just to, and if you only have an estimate for the variables, it might be, I don't know, about 20 grand, I seem to be spending about $1,500 a month, right? That's 18 grand, put that in there. You know, what fixed costs should be somewhat easier to calculate. Because then when you take away those costs from your revenue, you're going to have your net profit, and you might recognize that as also known as income, that stuff that you've been living on for the last year. So that's your way to wealth formula for now. That's what it was in 2012. I've got a question for you though. Would you want to get 10% better in 2013? Do you think you could get 10% better in 2013 with the coaching from us? Given that you're going to be you've got an extra year's experience. Some of you, that's like the whole of your mortgage broking experience. For some of you, it's 5% of it. But you've got another year's experience. Things have changed. The market's changed. It's opened up opportunities. Now it's making it more difficult to get mortgages. That opens up opportunities for you guys to add even more value. Okay, sure, it's harder for people to borrow the money technically, but that's where you can really add the value. So could you get 10% better this year than you did last year if you really put your mind to it? And I'm hoping there's a bunch of nods going on there. But you guys all know, and you presumably talk to your clients about the magic power of compounding. You know, well, I don't think I need to explain it much to you, but we can use that magic power of compounding in our own businesses, and that's very exciting. So could you increase the number of leads that you got next year by 10%? And let's put that in context. Instead of talking to 10 people seriously about a mortgage, could you talk to 11? And hopefully that doesn't feel too daunting. So over a period of 5 weeks, in this case, instead of seeing 2 people every week, once every 5 weeks you might see 3. So I'm not suggesting that we, explode the business. If you were getting 50 leads, instead of speaking to 5 people, so that would be 1 person a week. Every 10 weeks, could you talk to 2 people in a week? And I'm hoping that feels very doable. And at the same time, what if your conversion rate went up just by 10%? So we're not saying from 25% to 35%. We're saying from 25% to 27.5%. So you just close a few more deals because you improve your closing technique. You're attracting better qualified people who are more ready to buy from you. But these things become synergistic as you start attracting more leads and you start attracting quality people, so your conversion rate can go up. So would it be possible to go from 25 clients in 2012 to 30 clients in 2013, just by attracting more leads and getting better at conversion? Okay. So this is where we pause for a little while and say, okay, what actions could I take? And hopefully if you're in an office with some colleagues, you can sort of have a quick chat now for 30 seconds or a minute. What actions could you take to start attracting more people into your business who are better qualified, given the state of the market in your geography? And if you're alone, just jot down some notes to yourself. So let's continue with this magic formula. How could you increase your average commission by 10%? Now, where would you need to get really focused in terms of finding people who wanted to borrow more money, or where could you eke out a few extra points? Now, I absolutely wouldn't advocate and do not advocate selling somebody a mortgage that's more suitable for you than it is for them. That's not what I'm saying at all. Please don't take the message the wrong way. But what I'm saying is, how could you increase your average commission by 10% in ways that are ethical, are brand building, are best for you, you and your clients? And how could you find a few more multi-deal clients? How can you find people who want to build a portfolio of real estate? There's apparently a bubble bursting. That's going to open up opportunities. How do you find people who are ready, willing, and able to take advantage of that? That might just be a Vancouver phenomenon, but I don't know. So if you did that, then we're talking about our avatar here. Their average commission goes up from $3,000 to $3,300 per deal, and their loans go up by, the number of loans per client goes up from 1.04 to 1.14. Again, it's just selling 2 loans to one guy in 10. Is that possible instead of 1 guy in 25? Because let's look what happens to their revenue if that's what they do. If they manage to pull all those levers, they're going to get a huge increase in income. Now you're going to say, well, okay, my costs are going to be impacted. And so the next question is, if you understand what your previous variable cost percentage was, so in this case it was 23%, what is that minus 10%? And it's not 13, it's 23 minus 10% of 23, which is 20.3, 20.7 rather. So you take the new income, the 112,000 in this case, times the new variable, which is just over 20%, and you're going to get new variable costs. So in this case, you can see the variable costs have actually risen. We're not expecting you to grow your business without spending more money to grow your business, but as a percentage of the income, you've managed to keep it down. You've bought books in bulk, for instance. You've done a deal with a restaurant and said, look, I'm going to bring all my clients here, but I don't expect to pay full tab for this thing. I want a 15% kickback, or I want a 15% discount every time I bring a client in, or I'm going to go find a restaurateur who's hurting who does want to do that. How are you going to manage those variable costs down so that you can still spend as much, if not more, than you did last year, but as a percentage of your revenue, it's going to fall. And what can you do similarly with fixed costs? What was your previous fixed cost? Again, I cheated. It was 23%, so that minus 10%, again, just over 20. Again, so what are your personal new operating costs? So you have a new income, you have new variable, you have new fixed costs. So in terms of fixed costs, let me just go forward here a minute. You might want to spend, so in terms of fixed costs here, let me just get the pointer. The fixed costs that you've got here, you might take on a new CRM system. You might take on a new subscription to a leads generation service, something like that you decide you're going to invest your money. It's a fixed cost because if you get many leads and convert them or not, you're still spending it. But this gives you sort of permission or the ability to increase your fixed costs, but only at a proportion slightly slower than the growth of the business. I don't know if you have the ability to renegotiate leases or really go through all those fixed costs that you have and make sure you're managing them down. A friend of mine saved a lot of money changing telephone providers and ink providers for printers and things like that. Those are fixed costs. I mean, you might argue that some of the ink for printers is in a variable cost, but those are opportunities somewhere in here to save money by really going through line by line. Where are you spending money, and how can you reduce that and be aggressive about it? Because you're a business owner, remember, you're not just a mortgage seller or a mortgage broker. So if this person does this and reduces their costs as a proportion of their income by 10% on each of those issues, look, their income goes up from $42,000 to $66,000 a year. But they've not done anything massively different here. They've got a few more people in. They've done a slightly better job of attracting more qualified people, or they've learned some better closing techniques. They're attracting different people with different needs, so their average commission goes up, and they're pulling different levers with the lenders to increase the points somehow. They're getting a different type of client in, so they're selling them more. That's got the revenue. They're dropping the cost. Look at this. Their net income has risen. And am I right to say, wow, by how much? That was a 57.5% increase by making small changes throughout the business, which is why I love this formula, because it doesn't require you to go out and double your funnel. It doesn't require you to change how you sell massively. So instead of selling 1 in 4, you're now selling 1 in 2. You're now selling, just over 1 in 4. There's not huge changes in any one area, but you get a dramatic increase. If anybody on the line wouldn't like a 57.5% increase in income next year, then please let me know. So what we did was we took our business and broke it down into some really nice bite-sized pieces that we can focus on, and we can say, this is where I'm going to focus on this month. For instance, I'm going to set up my leads generation in January. I'm not going to focus on sales yet. Now I'm going to look at costs in February maybe. Right? But taking bite-sized pieces and enabling us to focus on that and really start thinking about some actions that we can take that are going to make a difference in our business. Because remember, we're not trying to hit a home run on all of this. This is like bunting your way around if you're into baseball. This is bunting and hitting singles and coming up with a championship-winning team. So we've taken bite-sized pieces and we've used the power of compounding. And honestly, 10% is just a suggestion. I'll come on a little bit later when we've taken some questions. There's some examples where if, despite my previous urging not to think like a victim and not to think in scarcity mentality, but if you want to bring it down lower, I'll still show you how this formula can make a massive difference to your income. And if you're feeling very bullish about it and saying, you know what, I had a bad year this year for a number of different reasons, I'm going to make a big difference in these areas, or I know I can bring in more leads, but I don't know what I can do about my my average commission rate, well, fine. Put the average commission increase is going to be 0, but the number of leads I'm going to get in, I'm going to increase that by 25%, for instance. It's up to you, but you can see how by pulling one, and the more you pull, the more it's going to compound. But 10% is just a suggestion. So if you do nothing else between now and Christmas and between now and the start of next year, what I really want for you to do is to know your way to wealth formula. And that means, especially for 2013, know what it was for 2012 and set some goals and set some targets for 2013. And I'll be asking you to send in your, if you want to, I'll do the same thing as Mike did with one of his. It's like set some goals, share them with us, and we'll follow up with you end of Q1 next year and see how you're getting on. Because if you really understand this way to wealth formula and you have an action plan which focuses on each individual lever that you can pull, it's going to feel so much more achievable, so much more doable, so much less daunting. So if you do nothing else between now and the 1st of January, it would be great for your business. It would be probably the best Christmas present you could give yourself to know 2012's numbers and plan some exciting stuff for 2013, and then just see what you can expect in terms of an increase in income. So here's some suggested actions. If you work alone, get on a conference call with some other VERICO guys. If you work in an office, arrange to meet them all around the board table at some point. But brainstorm with these colleagues on the how-tos, because it's being done by somebody. It's being done out there by the successful mortgage brokers, the people who are attracting. Go back to that initial poll. Some people are getting 150 leads a year. Most of you are getting under 50. What are they doing differently? How can you become a 150 lead a year person? More importantly, let's get you to 55 leads. Let's get you to 60 leads or 70 leads. You don't have to become 150 50 lead a year person in 2013, but you can build to it 10% a year. You'll get there in a few short years. What education could you take, for instance, on closing sales and attracting ideal clients? We're mortgage brokers, we're business owners, but we're also salespeople first and foremost. So are you driving around listening to sales stuff in your car? You know, I'm a Brian Tracy certified business coach. He has some phenomenal audio out there, tapes and CDs, and you can download them on your iPod. But he's by no means the only author, speaker on this subject. There's lots of free stuff, free podcasts that you can get. Download it onto your iPod, get it on CD, borrow it from the library, and get it in your car and get listening to it when you're driving to and from your sessions. Get educated on how to close, and if you just changed that closing technique and added 20% to that, so you closed 20% more deals, that would have a massive impact alone on your income. Track these variable costs. What's become an habitual spend and what's become throwing money away? So, are you tracking what you're spending on each deal, and is it appropriate to be spending that much? And when you're managing your overheads, and the overheads my term for sort of fixed costs, ones that it's over your head. You're going to spend it whether you land a deal or not. Invest with return on investment in mind. So is this going to generate me specifically more business? Not do I hope it is, but how much am I spending on this new system? How much am I spending on this lead generation offer And am I definitely getting this return on investment? Because you might invest in it in 2013, it doesn't pay you back. You can cut it in 2014 and go and invest that money somewhere else. So really manage with this, not what's everybody else doing, because it might work for them and it might not work for you for some subtle reasons. For instance, if a mortgage broker is very, very clear on their niche market, advertising in the local paper with a really focused advert might work for them. But if they're not very, very clear, if you're not very clear, then you put a general advert in, it could be money, or more likely it would be money thrown away. So manage your overheads with that in mind. So we'll take a pause for questions now. Sean Pinn, has anybody chipped in any questions? Because I say I'm hoping that some people are wondering how this is going to work in their business. Is there anybody who's got some? And don't go away, because I want to show you after these questions, I want to show you the impact of even small amounts of changes. So don't ring off. This isn't the end of the session.
So now is your opportunity. If you do have any questions, please feel free to type them into the chat box here for Rupert, and he's happy to answer some. And as he said, don't go away, because he's got a full of tips and ideas here. Any questions at all?
Okay, fine. I mean, hopefully that's because it's, it just totally makes sense, and people are saying, yeah, okay, I just need to get on with it. So let's move on. Sean, chip in if anybody sends something, if they're typing now.
Will do.
Feel free to interrupt me. But I just want to show you what happens if you only increase everything by 5%. So if your leads went up from 100 to 105, or from, let's say, 50 to 53, this is the kind of impact you're going to get. 5% increase in conversion. You're going to get between 2 and 3 additional clients here. All that boils down, and you make small adjustments to your variable costs. That still results in a 25% increase in take-home pay just by looking at 5%. Now, there might be somebody on the line who still thinks that I'm being overly aggressive. Let's have a look at what 3% can do for you. You're going to get, maybe, ideally, you're going to get a whole new client if you go for 3% and improve. Between 1 and 2 new clients, if you just improve a little bit here and here, all that compounds still to give you a 15% increase in your take-home pay next year. It's another $6,500 in your pocket just by making small changes and saving a little bit of money here and here. But I get that, but that's talking a little bit more to some of the people who are struggling to get above the line. I'm going to talk now to the guys who are really above the line and are saying, you know what, Rupert, I get what you're saying. It makes total sense. Show me the money. Show me what happens if I get really aggressive. Well, if you could increase your leads by 20% and got really good at closing, well, I'm not even really good at closing, just close 1 in 3 instead of 1 in 4, you get many more clients. You get much more commission because you've changed the way that you're focusing on it. You renegotiate as best you can in all sorts of areas to increase your commission. You're getting a different kind of client. Your revenue more than doubles. Your variable costs nearly double too, but much slower than the rate of revenue. Similarly, your fixed costs, you've got a 271% increase opportunity just by pulling these 20% levers. Okay, you can see that power of compounding. So you can go from sort of national average wage-ish to here to star performer, getting above that 6-figure threshold by pulling these 20 percenters. Even if this was a high watermark for you, if you've got low leads here and everything else was struggling from there on in, and so that even if this net income here was high for you, you can double it, more than double it, by getting aggressive and knowing and focusing an action plan here on your leads, an action plan here on conversion, an action plan on commission, an action plan on client type, action plan on these costs, an action plan on those costs. You've got 6 action plans, and you can more than double your income. That's why I say I like it, because it makes it, to me, looking at my business, look at all my clients' businesses, it makes it feel so achievable and doable when you break it down and put it like that, that, wow, I just need 6 specific action plans. They don't have to be massively long. You can just choose the top 3. You know what we like in Focal Point? 3 things. Choose 3 things. What are the 3 things I'm going to try here on my leads? What are 3 things I'm going to do better to convert people? What are 3 things I'm going to at least attempt here to increase my average commission, etc. 3 costs I'm going to cut, 3 costs I'm going to renegotiate here to bring this down. And the impact is massive. So you've got the client equation, you've got the sales equation, you've got the cost equation. And my suggestion was, if you just targeted 10% per year, you could see the massive impact that it had. Choose whatever works for you, but I urge you, going into Christmas, to be as greedy with what that 10% could be and make it 11 or 12 or 15 or 20 as you're probably going to be on Christmas Day when the gravy comes round, right, or when the turkey's been passed. So if you apply that sort of self-discipline, I'm going to be as greedy next year, all next year, with the growth of my business as I am at Christmas Day when my favorite food comes by. Then you'll do extremely well next year, or you will be if you're as greedy as I am when the food comes by. So we like to do this every time. If you can jot down the 3 things. Now, one of the things you're going to start doing maybe is start having 6 action plans. Now, there's going to be more than 3 things on that action plan. But, what are 3 things you're going to start doing immediately, starting today? It's 11:18 Pacific time today. By 12 o'clock, you should have 1 or 2 of these things done or in place. And it might be schedule some time for this action planning in my diary. It might be make an appointment with yourself for 6 o'clock this evening to go through this Way to Wealth formula once you've had dinner. What is it you're going to do and you start doing immediately that's going to make a difference in 2013 for you? Because you go away, if you go back now, answer your emails, check your voicemail, check Facebook for whatever, you'll lose all the impetus, and this will have been a wasted 50 minutes for you. So let's take some actions right now that are going to be important to you. Equally, what are you going to stop doing? Now, this would be a great way straight away to start saving some money. What are you going to stop doing? What are you going to stop spending money on? What are you going to stop, instead of taking them to a top-end restaurant, take them to a slightly cheaper one, or you're going to renegotiate that rebate from the restaurateur? Where are you going to save some money? 3 things you're going to stop doing immediately. And what are the 3 things that are great that you're going to continue, but maybe do a little bit better? The idea of giving the books away. Yeah, I've done that every now and again. I'm now going to make it a religious thing for me. Every time somebody comes in, I'm going to make sure that I give them these vital books, and I'm going to follow up with them. What are those 3 things? And if you'd like to share them with me, then absolutely, VERICO@focalpointcoaching.com. It'd be great to hear the changes that you guys are going to make. And similarly on that, if you want to send me, and I'd love it if you would, to VERICO@focalpointcoaching.com, send me your current Way to Wealth, send me your 2013 Way to Wealth, and I'll phone you personally at the back end of March, and we'll see how you're getting on, to provide some of that one-on-one coaching, some of that sort of accountability that is so vital in making changes. So if you want to do that, I'm more than happy to do that for everybody on the call. I'll have maybe 15, 20 minutes on the phone with you, and you just know it's coming. Your actions will be different. So I'll give you a free copy of these key slides and also a Way to Wealth worksheet. It's just a simple Word document for you to print out and work on. If you want to send that to, or send an email to VERICO@focalpointcoaching.com, I'll send those to you later on today. So, Sean, if there's no are there any other questions come in? We're a little bit early, but are there any questions?
I don't see any questions now, and again, feel free if you have some coming in right now. Please feel free to send them in at this point in time. It's a great way to end 2012 and go into 2013. I know we're all doing some planning on our end as well, and I love to start doing 3 things, stop doing 3 things, and continue to. I know there's things in my own planning that I'm working on myself, and You know, whether it's for me, I get distracted very, very easy. I got to find out how can I turn my phone off and turn my email off and just have no distractions, because if I see an email come in, I feel I have to check it. If the phone rings, I have to answer it. So I need to know. I can't know about it. I can't even know that it's happening. And there's some things, so those are some things I know I have to stop, and I'm sure everyone's got their own little quirks that work for them, but I think this is great for 2013. I know at VERICO we're extremely excited for 2013. I think 2012 was an interesting year for many. I know we achieved our goals, and we shared this with a lot of our members. We achieved all our goals this year, but it was harder than it used to be. It wasn't as easy. And maybe 2013 maybe is easy, or maybe a little bit harder or easier, but there are goals that we have and we're going to work towards, and I know you guys have as well. I think you're going to see a lot more things from VERICO in 2013, which we're excited to share with you. For those that haven't seen or heard, there are a lot of things that we have that can support you in achieving those goals, whether it's increasing your revenue, decreasing your costs, or being in front of your customers a lot more. And part of the initiative that VERICO is going to be doing for you guys, if you haven't seen, is that all of your broker owners got an email yesterday saying that in the first quarter of 2013, we will be visiting, or at least offering the opportunity for us to visit your office and do a 2-hour training session with all the tools and systems that we offer that we've seen successfully implemented throughout the VERICO network. So I encourage you all to take us up on that. And take up Focal Point and Rupert and the crew there on some opportunities that they provide. Be accountable. Send in your information to them, and they will make yourself accountable to it. It does help you achieve your goals. We appreciate everything everyone's done here from Focal Point and the VERICO Professional Coaching Series here in 2012. We look forward to a great series in 2013 on continuation of this. And if there's anything you guys need, please send it to us at VERICO. We wish you all very, very happy holidays, a fabulous 2013, and I think it's going to be a great one for all of us. So, again, appreciate it. Rupert, thank you, and we'll be talking January 10th will be our next call.
Look forward to it. Have a great Christmas, everybody, in the meantime.